Hello and welcome to a new episode of Pat's Chats. Today, I'm very blessed to have Mallory Loone with me. Mallory, thank you very much for making the time and joining me today.
Thank you for having me and nice to be here.
Very nice. As I said, I feel very blessed because I know you're all over the place, very occupied. You're the co-founder and lead trainer at Work Inspires. You are a mentor and judge at different various startup events, committee member of Tulips movement and women-centered Malaysian-based community interest company. 3 times TEDx speaker, very impressive also. Again, that's why I'm very blessed. I feel very blessed, really honored you're on my show. Are you like hyperactive, or were you hyperactive that you need to do like all this stuff, or how can you manage to bring this all under one umbrella? It's really impressive.
I actually learned about how I work when I started failing my exam. So fun fact is that I studied ACCA, right? I did accountancy. They, unlike most degree, do not come with internship, doesn't come with assignment. It's just like study and then 6 months later you go regurgitate what you've memorized. That's basically, those papers for you. And I started failing the paper towards the end because I was too free. Like I had too much time. So people usually go, okay, you have one subject in 6 months, you would pass it, right? But I couldn't because I couldn't study anymore. I was just bored. So when I started picking up things, so that's when I studied part-time, went to work full-time, started doing a few projects. Then I realized that, I became a lot more focused when I had a very limited time to study. Hence why till today, when it comes to work, I have to juggle numerous hats and do multiple things. If not, I don't think I can do a good job. I feel too free.
Awesome. As I just mentioned it, you studied accounting, applied accounting, but you
Yeah.
never really worked in that subject matter. Is that correct?
My mother would agree with you.
Oh, I study accounting at first. It's like just because you didn't know what to study else, or was it something of your
Here
still
in
of your interest?
Asia, we have something called you either be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or accountant. So I didn't do very well in sciences, so I'm left with accountancy. So that's basically what happened. I remember on my first day, or to be honest, I didn't even know what ACCA was. All I knew was when I went to university, so I went to Sunway University, and it was an orientation day, and we had this lecturer that was telling us what the course was about, and he was hilarious. He's like you. He's always making joke, he's always smiling, he's always laughing, and my mother fell completely in love with it. So she decided that my daughter is going to study that course because the lecturer was very good. And that afternoon itself, I went to sign up. Hence how I wasn't really, I wouldn't say that I didn't like it. I appreciate what I studied. I'm grateful for the experience.
Hmm.
Did I apply a lot of it? Not really.
Yeah, not
I
really.
just
Yeah,
applied a handful of what I need to know. It
yeah,
does help with conversation starters. Like, people will be, how did you went from accountancy to starting a business?
yeah. It's like kind of an icebreaker, right?
Yeah, it's a good conversation starter. So if you're not too sure what you do, you just say, fun fact, I studied accountancy. And they'll look at you and go, what?
In
Which
one
part
of
of you look like an accountant?
Uh, yeah, true. Also, but if I look at one of the TEDx speeches that you had, I think that was the push before you shatter, right? You explained a little
Yeah.
bit that you were so unsure what to do and just tried different things. Also, you eventually moved into a company. What was that? Thriving Talents. I think you worked there almost for 5 years as a
Yeah.
trainer. Is that where you like found your passion? Really, is like
Actually, it
teaching or
was
coaching
before
other
that.
people?
It was before that. It was before that. Okay, so a bit about my life story. After ACCA, yes, you're right. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a bit lost because I didn't have time to think about what I wanted to do after I graduate. It was just like everything was rushed. So when I went for job interviews, I decided to play the narrow, your elimination game. So I applied for jobs in sales and marketing, HR, finance, and operations, hoping that, if I only get finance, then hey, I know it's for me, but apparently not. I got job offers in sales and marketing, HR, business development, and finance. So it didn't make life any easy. But I did meet somebody that changed my perspective of a lot of things. So I went for a job interview with General Electric at the time, and it was for their financial management program. And I met the most fun interviewer ever. We had like almost 2 hours of endless conversations while having an interview.
Okay.
It was really good. We were talking about Formula One to, traveling and then business and then work. At the end of the conversation, so I thought I got a job, but I didn't. And when I asked for feedback, he told me that he explained that perhaps I'm not suitable to be in finance. I should do something more people oriented, kind of suit my personality better.
Okay.
And because they didn't have a vacancy at that point for any people related role, he couldn't hire me. But he told me to really think about it. So that's where that was the light bulb moment I needed. To be honest, it made me even more depressed because I studied ACCA for 5 years, 4 years, and I was like crying after my exams and very emotionally
Wow.
troubling. But after all that trouble, you said that, hey, Mallory, you're in the wrong course. That's in summary what I heard. But I took his advice. So I went to join a NGO under the Ministry of Finance, also under a finance agency called Cradle,
Yeah.
Cradle
Okay.
Fund Center Berhad. So I joined Cradle and as their NGO team. So I was running a entrepreneurship NGO. Basically, I had to go around to all campus in Malaysia, telling young people to think about entrepreneurship as a choice. That's where I found what I really like to do, which is in people development. Because I realized there are a lot of young people out there like me who are lost. And so, ta-da, that's where I decided, okay, you know what? This is where you can find your footing of helping these young people. That's after that is when I joined Traveling Talents. So Traveling Talents I actually co-founded with my former business partner together with two other investors.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
after 5 years
Nice.
there, I realized that time to move,
Time to move on. Yeah. Okay. Oh,
time
that's
to try
impressive.
something
I,
else.
I like the story. So basically, during a job interview, where eventually you did not get the job, but you got like kind of a
The best light
coaching.
bulb moment.
Yeah, right. That changed your entire life, and that's cool. An awesome story. And you just mentioned like after the 5 years in the company, you wanted to make a change, become an entrepreneur, start a new thing, which you did with Work Inspires. But let us know a little bit more about like your motivation, the triggers that like after this time you're working in a corporate, even you co-founded, you needed a change, you wanted to do something else.
Yeah, I think one lesson I wish everybody would know or someone would told me before I started was, Mallory, before you start a business, you gotta know yourself. Because if you don't know who you are and what are the values that you stand for, what are some things that drives you, what are some things that actually keeps you driven and focused on what you want to achieve, you tend to sway very easily. So that's what happened to me. I mean, that time I was fairly young. I was like 22, I think, or 21, 22. So I didn't have much time to really think about, neither did I know what is it like to think about who you are and what you stand for, things like that. So when after running the business for about 5 years, I actually became like a walking zombie in office. I came to work, I came to work at 7 and I sleep till 9 before I start my work because I was just so tired all the time. I would wake up in the middle of the night and go, have I sent my proposal? Did I make the amendment? I would be sick and still crawling out of bed just to reply emails. So that's how bad it became for me that I didn't know how to separate my work, my life, and my health deteriorated. A lot of things were very tiring for me. So, and that's also when we had a lot of conversation about the direction of the business. I realized that I'm not really happy with where things are going for myself, and I could tend to question like, why are we doing this? Is this effective? So that's when, after a conversation with all my investors, I decided that okay, it's best for me to exit and go and do something that I'm focused on. So now the difference is when it comes to building what inspires today, I really am very focused on not just me, but the whole team, my co-founder. We are very focused on delivering results. very focused on results. So we will do whatever it takes to make sure that whatever that the client suggests become actual tangible results.
Yeah.
And we have had experiences where we turned down training opportunities because we felt that training is not what they needed. And you actually tell them upfront that you don't need to spend so much money on training. People would say you're a very naive entrepreneur, but it holds true to our values of focusing on value adding and focusing on results. So we actually said things to our client like, you don't need to pay so much for training. You just need to pay for a half day facilitated conversation. And they're looking at us like, what? We are offering to pay you, and you're telling me that it's okay,
Don't
take a
want.
discount because you don't need this. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
That's what indeed.
But
Um,
yeah,
and
I mean, but the thing is, it builds a lot of good relationship.
I agree with that. I mean, it's more on the long term approach, right? You don't sell something the company doesn't need, but then they will come back to you when they really need what you're offering. And let's dig into that. What you're really offering. You say Work and Spice is a people engagement company, but maybe you can take 2-3 minutes to explain what you're really doing in
Ah,
this
yes.
aspect.
Okay. I'll summarize it in a way.
Yes,
So,
please.
Work Inspires, yes, we are a people engagement and development company. So, essentially, what we work with companies are in four pillars. The first pillar is in hiring and also in assessments. So, we do work with companies on onboarding programs, young management training programs, so on. Second one is in learning and development. Third one is in culture transformation or engagement. So, we do work with companies on a corporate wide or national-wide initiative that they want to implement, for example, leadership change, culture change, and so on and so forth. And of course, the last one is in now. The term is team rebuilding because everybody is back at home, and the pandemic shifted a lot about culture. It shifted a lot about how the team dynamics work. So it's a lot more rebuilding what the team should be in order to drive the new norm forward in some way. So those are the four pillars of what we do.
Very nicely summarized. Thank you so much for that. And I think we focus on one of the pillars, right, in this chat. We discussed this about the cultural change, right? That is like it's also a nice topic because I told you I just came out of my MBA program and we talk a lot about culture. So I'm very interested in that. But I think also it's a highly interesting topic for everyone, especially we discussed about two triggers, right? One is the digitalization. One is is obviously COVID that changes the cultures of companies, or in the other way, companies have to change their culture to adopt. And maybe it's even interrelated. I mean, some companies, like from my experience now, finally figured out because of COVID, they had to go digital, right? Which before is like, just let's continue as we did for the past 30 years. It's a little bit related. Well, let's focus on the digitalization part today. So how, like, let's say, let's start first with like how what is the main effect? How would you define, like, what is the main changes that you see in the corporate culture that need to change when it comes to digitalization?
I think I just give a bit of context first. Like, generally, what forms culture is people. And over the years, you would understand that, there are about 4 to 5 generations working in a company at the same time. So you have your new fresh grads, Gen Z, super happy, very good with technology. And then you still have the baby boomers in their 60s figuring out how to screenshot their phone. So you have a very vast difference in terms of who they are and what they expect technology to be. So when it comes to digitalization, the problem is when companies do not have a clear goal or communication about why you need to digitalize or what digitalization is, in fact, it causes fear due to uncertainty. So when you have fear, for example, you have at one point people debating, will technology take over jobs? As simple thing as that. And you have a generation that says that, oh, thank God for technology, make life easier. And you have another handful of generation that say that no, technology is going to take over my current paperwork, means I'm going to be out of job. So imagine if you do not create a very clear sense of communication that, hey, we are here to enable you with all this digitalization process in a way that makes your life easier so you can go home on time. You do not need to have overtime. You do not need to worry about where you file your paper. And employees will be able to accept it more. But the challenge is that everybody wants to roll it out, but nobody wants to talk about it. And when no one talks about it in a clear manner, people panic. And when people panic, like panic buying, what do? They panic spread rumors or gossips or questions that, do you hear? Boss is going to roll something out. It's going to take over our jobs. And that spread like wildfire. So that's how culture gap come about. When you have all this miscommunication, this gap appears between people and what the goal is, and that's how it causes culture distress.
Mhm. I mean, you just mentioned a couple of challenges, right? One is on the generation gap, which is
Yeah.
obvious because you have like digital natives and the older generation, let's say, that did not grow up with a digital device or in a digital way. But also, I hear like one of the challenges is like the leadership, right? Like, how do you define the targets, and also how you communicate. So when you look at this aspect from a leadership point of view, I mean, how does the leadership need to change or influence the corporate culture?
Yeah. I think like when it comes to leaders, it's not all leaders are always on the same page. Let's put it that way. Not all leaders are always on the same page. So you have some leaders who are a bit more people oriented and people centric. So they tend to have better communication styles and they have better leadership styles. So they take time to communicate with their teams. On the other hand, you have leaders who might not agree with what the company direction is, but hey, it's a job, we're going to do the job, right? So hence why they will just execute. So when you have employees asking, hey boss, why are we doing this? The boss will answer, don't ask, just do, because do as you're told. Hence, because the boss himself or herself do not agree with such process. So if you ask me, what are some, maybe one or two key things that leaders can do is number one, all leaders need to take time to align their goals. You cannot have CEO saying A, CHRO saying B, and COO saying C. And among leaders, it's also important for them to have a very clear sense of message. Like, okay, across all departments, these are things that all leaders need to advocate, speak about, and do. It's not a HR job, it's not a finance job. You cannot have the finance person saying that, oh, it's not my job to communicate with people, it's your job, so go do it. You can't have that either. And hence why it's important for everybody to speak the same language, agree on the same topics, the cost, the objectives, and go speak to people about it. Number three is do not afraid to speak. Number two is do not be afraid to speak about the negative effect of such digitalization plan or process. Because I mean, like all things that you are changing, some changes are good, some changes are not so good, and some changes would have some negative effect, like maybe certain departments have to merge, or there might be some sort of retrenchment going on due to budget cuts, or there might be a change in terms of the way each other communicate or how you communicate with customers, so on and so forth. So there might be some hostile things that your stakeholders might be coming back at you, and how are you going to face it? So don't be afraid to speak about it. A lot of times companies speak about the good things. Hey, this is why you should digitalize, but nobody tells you that, oh, these are some side effects. Let's talk about like the vaccine, right? Good thing is, hey, the vaccine is good for you, but there might be some side effects that you need to know. So that's how you should communicate digitalization. This is why it's good and it will help you with your job, but there are some side effects you need to take note of, such as maybe some customers might be questioning you about certain things. Sometimes you might have some colleagues that you need to explain certain things more about, and you might need to help the other generations that are not so tech savvy. So these are the side effects that come with it. And companies should not be afraid to talk about such things and take action, not send an FAQ out and say, oh, by the way, read this if you have time. These are the terms and conditions. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And the last thing, if you ask me what leaders can do as well, is to also go back to the drawing board and ask themselves, do you need to roll it out wide, or can you do it in pilot and step-by-step process? Like we always advocate leaders to call in any culture change for that matter to have culture ambassadors. So these are people that are not of all people consist of all generations and from different departments and mindsets, but all in agreement of this culture And when these ambassadors actually go out to execute the task, they are also your best word of mouth to be able to explain to their colleagues and friends and people of concerns in department, and to maybe be like a little, I wouldn't want to use the word spy, but like a little spy in the team and go, boss, this department is a bit worried. Maybe you should talk to them. So at least you have people who actually advocate it on behalf, not just say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I hear the very nice analogy you used, like compared to the vaccination. I think what we can take from that also is like it's not a 1 day thing, right? It's not like you just get a jab and then it's done. Same for the cultural changes, right? You cannot just say, okay, now we become a digital company and then that's it. It is obviously a process. A process that might be triggered by the top management, but it can also be that it's triggered by the let's say by the younger generations, right? Because they obviously want to move into digital and make use of this digital benefits. Also, like I mean, the entire work environment or workplace itself, right? I'm talking about like flexible workplaces, flexible work times also. Do you agree with that? Is it something like that is can be also a bottom up approach, or what is your experience how this usually works?
Okay, I think I really like the point from the bottoms up approach. Like it's very true because if let's say the people want something, look at the current situation. Okay, when the people suggest, the voice of the people are very strong to the point that they can make certain changes. The petitions, the debates that people can have actually cause changes in climate change. It cause changes in policies. It cause changes around the world. So similarly, in an organization, a good culture would be one where there is a two-way flow of communication. So meaning the leaders need to be able to accept a bottom-up suggestion as much as the bottom needs to accept why the leader need to implement certain changes. So it's not a one-way flow conversation, and there are some suggestions that can come from the bottom. But here's the reality of things, right? The people mindset may not be so ready for it. It's very easy when you come in as a maybe 1-2 year management trainee, or you are at a certain manager or junior manager level, and you have this big idea that, hey, I want the company to be doing so many things because I've seen this company do it that works. This is a new thing. We should get on board. It's very easy to look at it from an external perspective and say why they want it. But we've often faced that they do not think strategically. They do not understand at the top what are some of the challenges and messages they might give and all that, that they have to solve, they have to firefight, they have to fix. You can't say that, oh, we should implement this kind of workforce or work flexibility. But on the other hand, when you the middle level, you might realize that work flexibility is not something that they can comprehend. For example, at one point, a lot of generation would say that yes, you should work from home because one thing is about lesser commuting time, but they forgot to think of the people with small kids and toddlers. Imagine working with them 24/7 a day. It's difficult. So you don't think of it as simple as that level. You don't think of it that way. You just wanted it because it's at your convenience. So I would highly suggest for any organization, if you want to really drive culture with digitalization, is to take into account, if you want to suggest, let's say I'm a young person, young talent in the company, and I really want to suggest this good idea, it's to bring it up to your management, but also bring it up the points where, okay, what are the strategy level that you can have at this point, like based on the current situation, worst case scenario, things like that, that your leaders will need to think about and you don't often think about because you're not exposed. Put it up with suggestions. Of course, as a leader as well, it's expensive or it's not possible because it's difficult to do. It's not possible because it's not an Asian thing. Don't do that. or be open to suggestions and ideas. And for me, I always tell all the department leaders, rule of thumb is actually spend 48 hours looking at the idea before you say no. My rule of thumb, always spend 24. The reason why I put 48 is because 24 hours, you would spend 23 hours grumbling about why it's bad, and then 1 hour to look at it. So when I say 48 hours, you can spend 24 hours grumbling about why it's bad, and you spend the next 24 hours looking at, why not. So I always tell all leaders, whatever ideas that your staff or people or young or old, anyone who gives you for that matter, 48 hours rule of thumb. After 48 hours, you can say no, provided you actually look at it for 48
Nice.
hours.
I like that. So you also have 2 nights to sleep over it, basically.
Yes, correct. Don't make rash decision based on emotion, people. It's not
Okay,
good.
cool. I have one more topic which goes into this, and this is the work from home. We're getting into MCO3, already
Yeah.
are in, and more people will work from home again. I heard, or I was listening to one of the BFM talks you were giving, where it talked about the work from home, the micromanagement aspects, right? There's like a tendency that is possible because maybe also companies were not used to it, that now they have no direct control over their employees or see what they're doing. But now we're already like 1.5 years later before the first lockdown or MCO that we had in Malaysia. Do you see like uh, a relevant change already in the mindset of many of these managers when it comes to work from home?
I think, okay, BFM actually brought up a very interesting topic as well. Similar to this, the topic was for micromanagers. Ironically, they brought it up like almost a year after the pandemic. So what I and what we've worked with on companies as well is that the good news is working from home is no longer a very difficult thing, because everybody would have the resources ready compared to the first lockdown, right? The first lockdown, it was like 48-hour notice. We had to scramble everything just to get everybody home, get the internet up, and things like that. However, okay, I'm going to give you a very simple analogy. Let's say every single day you go to work, you go to the office, eventually you'll reach to a point where it becomes a norm to slack off. Like when you were starting your first day on the job, what do? You'll be the earliest there, 30 minutes before. You want to read before your work starts. You're very gung ho about delivering. 1 year later, you may not be as enthusiastic or excited as you were 1 year ago, right? And then last time, 1 year ago, when you first started your job, you'll work overtime without complaint. 1 year later, you will definitely complain if you have to work overtime. So similarly with this work from home culture, exact same analogy. So what we've noticed is that yes, the first MCO, everybody was very gung ho, like, oh, how do we make the best out of it? Of course, there are some concerns with managers in terms of measuring productivity, because March is also a bonus payout month. So everybody have to really count into the how do we count performance reviews and all those things. Good news is companies changed it. So a lot of companies have moved towards a results driven performance review rather than just a, how long you clock in and clock out performance review. However, as we see it, people are also tend to slack off a bit now that they are comfortable at home. So at one point, that gung ho-ness, like how you were on your first day on the job, is no longer there. And people tend to be like, okay, meeting is at 9:30, so I'll come in 9:25. Last time, when you first time work from home, you will come in at 9:15 or 9 o'clock, hoping to check the internet, make sure the connection is good, make sure you read. Now you just come in 9:25 without anything. Okay, with the excuse, I can't turn on my camera, I can't turn on my mic. Sorry, not convenient. I'll just type. Exact same thing. So because of that, there turned out a lot of micro managers are popping up, because they feel that I can feel the distance. There's a sense of, this is also where culture comes in. There is a culture shift in the way team dynamics used to be. I mean, like once upon a time, you're seeing everybody in your face, and now you're seeing everybody using the screens of people without seeing their face, because everyone's camera is off. So you don't even have the proper dynamics anymore. So I think a lot of leaders can feel it, like managers definitely can feel it, but they just don't know what else can they do about it because of this work from home thing.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
know. People are getting Zoom fatigue or video fatigue.
Mm.
They when MCO started, any company do any engagement, virtual workout, virtual lunch session, everybody gets excited because oh, it's a
Mm,
new thing.
yeah,
And now if your boss says let's do a virtual lunch session, you're like, again,
yeah,
again,
yeah.
let's do a virtual workout.
but but
No, so
But you brought up
that
a very interesting point. I just want to touch on this one maybe as a last item because you just mentioned like okay, there's like these micromanagers out there, right? And we as employees would most probably complain about that. Oh, my boss micromanager, he check everything I'm doing. But the point you just mentioned is like maybe it is also due to yourself, right? Because of the employee is forcing the manager to become a micromanager. So maybe you have like one or two tips or hints for an employee to make sure that your manager doesn't become or doesn't need to become a micromanager.
my first tip would be update your manager before they ask. Because people only micromanage when they can't. It's like they know that, let's say, for example, a deadline is tomorrow, and up to today, I've not gotten a single word from you. I'm a bit worried. And I can't see you. I can't walk up to you and just ask. I can't simply call you because you might be busy with your kid or taking care of things at home. I will just ping you a couple times a message and hoping that you reply me. So it's difficult for the managers when they cannot get answers on the spot. So what we always suggest is if you feel that your manager is starting to, every 5-10 minutes asking you, hey, have you gotten this ready? Have you gotten that ready? Make it a point to always update them at least a day before so that they are aware and they feel a bit at ease. So that's what the employees can do. And as for the managers, a tip for you is that if you notice you're feeling this a bit of anxiety when you cannot get answers or you feel that your team dynamic is a bit slacking, have a very serious conversation with them about it. Because more often than not, the people can't take sudden change in behavior, but they can take feedback. So have a very frank conversation and just tell them that yes, we understand this work from home thing with all the family, the kids going to school and then not going to school at the same time is taking a toll on everybody. Just take 5 minutes to ask how's everybody coping with things at home and just share that honestly, as a manager, you are feeling the sudden stress and you are also feeling this team dynamics that's a bit loose at this point. So what can everybody work together to fix? So when you are frank with why you are doing this, people will understand. And then when they understand, they can, empathize rather than gossip. I always say it's always better to call the white elephant than to wait for the white elephant to become bigger.
Okay. Awesome. I like that. Thank you so much, Mallory. The half hour passed so fast. It's crazy. I know we had a lot more topics to discuss. Maybe I have to invite you a second time. But thanks so much. I think that was very insightful with many tips and hints on how companies can improve their culture, their corporate culture, and also the way of doing business and work together in a company. So thanks so much, Mallory,
Thank you for
for your
having
time.
me. Yes, 30 minutes gone by way too fast for this.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And thanks to the audience for watching this episode. I hope you liked it and you found it as insightful as I did. And then I see you for a new episode of Pat's Chat probably next week. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Take care.